And welcome back to the Marvel Movie Minute, a daily podcast in which we dig in deep to analyze the films of the Marvel Cinematic Universe 1 minute at a time. I'm Andy Nelson from thenextreel.com.
And I'm Pete Wright, also from The Next Reel.
We are looking at Jon Favreau's 2008 film, Iron Man. And joining us this week, we have Kathy Campbell from Friends in Your Ears. Hey, Kathy.
Hi, Andy and Pete.
We are so happy to have you.
Hi, Kathy.
Yay.
We've only been planning this for like 63 episodes.
Yeah, no, it's fine. It's fine. I'm not holding it against you that I'm in minute 81. It's fine.
But it's a good group of minutes.
It is a really good group of minutes. As I was watching these, I was just like, yes. So it's good. It's all good.
Right. Dog fights, all sorts of good stuff this week.
Yeah.
Yeah. We are looking today at Iron Man Minute 81. On today's show, the minute starts with Major Allen telling Colonel Rhodes from Weapons Development that they have nothing. And it ends with Rhodey asking Tony if he's sure he doesn't have any tech in the area. We are starting... We started this scene in the last minute. This is at Edwards Air Force Base. They've asked Colonel Rhodes from Weapons Development to come down and see if he has anything in the area. And nobody knows what this mysterious thing in the air is. This is kind of this is a fun little scene. I like the way that this all plays out because we know Tony as Iron Man just kind of destroyed all the bad guys, but the good guys don't know who he is. And so this is kind of
there's lots of really good sciencey military talk. You know, you have AWAC and Global Hawk and radar and cross section, and it's like it's very much like we're the military. We're very intensely watching this area because there's a bogey and we don't know what it is, but it might not be a bogey. But we're just gonna It's very entertaining, especially. So I haven't watched the full film in a while, and I was like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. So that was kind of nice.
This is the whole reveal to the Air Force is so delightful, and Major Allen is mad.
Boy, is he?
He seems like such a nice, sort of a gentle giant of a military man, but he gets mad, and he says things like "Kingdom Come."
Yeah, which if you're watching a military movie and someone doesn't say "Kingdom Come," then you know it's not a big,
it's not a military movie. Who are we kidding?
Yeah.
Then there's probably it probably has a dance break.
I also have some thoughts on the fact that Iron Man's phone in his Iron Man suit has just a default ring. Like
he hasn't programmed. He's been busy. He's been busy dealing with terrorists. He hasn't had time to program.
Jarvis hop in and fix it. Like,
right.
Or what? Yeah, especially since Rhodes has a custom ringtone for Tony Stark. Like, and it says, but we'll get that. That's not here.
A couple of minutes. But yes, no, you're right. Why doesn't he have a better ringtone? He could have downloaded one of thousands. Well, 2008. Let's see. I'm sure there were still a good variety of ringtones.
There were
in 2008.
plenty. Like he easily could have had, from a porno or Wonderwall or
Wonderwall.
I mean, there's so many different things he could have chosen other than the default.
Now, let me ask this question. I don't know. Was the ring that's in here, was it reminiscent of any other like heavy branded cell phone manufacturer default ringtone at the time?
Well, we've seen a lot of Verizon, LG products in here, so I'm wondering if it was...
Maybe this was the default Verizon ring, right? Maybe this was a sponsored ringtone. The worst sponsored ringtone in cinematic history.
Because nobody knows what it is. Because at least if it's a Nokia, you know what it is. But nobody has any clue. But I bet I could just imagine the meeting with the Verizon executives, and they're like, we need this ringtone because as soon as it plays, you're gonna know exactly what it's playing on.
That is exactly right. That's it. Give us a number. Give us a number, Disney, Marvel. Give us a number. We'll pay it. This is like a $5 million ringtone placement. Mm-hmm.
I'd love to be the man who came up with that ringtone. Yes, there it is. It's an Iron Man.
We found it. Daddy, is that your ringtone?
That's what the Wonderwall guys are. Damn it, we were so close.
And then, since we're talking about the phone,
Yes.
this was a full paragraph of my notes about this particular section. But how does he answer? There's no verbal, okay, dingus answer or anything. Jarvis doesn't come in or...
Well, so the way that they described this HUD, and this is me getting nerdy now, is
Yes, please.
The HUD, the heads-up display that he's always looking at, they've talked about it how, because he can't push buttons within the HUD, it's just all this visual information in front of him, but it recognizes his retina and what it's looking at, and if he looks at something long enough, supposedly that will kind of trigger it to open, and so I'm assuming if it rings and he just looks at the caller information and stares at the call button just for that extra second, that will answer it for him.
Okay, that makes more sense. But once again, why do they should have taken, and of course I am not the movie maker. I don't make movies. The closest thing to making movies I do is recording my daughter's dance recitals.
And then overlay amazing visual effects on top of it. But go ahead.
Well, of course. I mean, that's don't give away my secrets, Pete. Right. But it would have been really cool to have Rhodes' face pop up as he's flying through the clouds or wherever it was that he is flying at that moment to have.
But he does, Kathy.
He will.
But not at this first part.
Right. Well, it's because we don't see
answer.
it. We don't see it.
Well, yeah.
He answers and we're not looking. But
what's so beautiful about this moment is that his face pops up and he's actually looking at Rhodes' face right about second 30, and he actually pulls a new phone who dis moment. Yeah. Like, that is so Tony Stark. I love it.
That's very true.
Yeah. It's very funny. It's like when you have that caller ID but you're like, I don't want to acknowledge that I know who they are. I'm just going to pretend I'm not sure.
I don't do this, but I'm sure others do.
Very casual.
I've never done that, no. It is a cool like answering system that he has here. And of course looking at his heads up display, it has tons of information, but it does make me slightly wish for I can't remember who we were talking. One of our previous guests, we were talking about the heads up display and how the whole eye thing worked. And we decided that it actually would have been more visually interesting if he had to blink at things. And so it was always like left blink, right blink. Like, wouldn't that be funny if we cut to Tony's face and he's like doing all these blinks to answer his phone and everything.
Well, and that gets down to a fundamental problem that I have with the eye gaze interface in a military suit. Like, how efficient is it when seconds really count and people are firing weapons at you to have to stare at like the fire button for that extra second so that it'll finally fire in the heads up display? Like those kinds of things make me a little bit crazy. Everything else is really sexy, but I go back to like one of the great moments we had in a previous minute was when he twitches his fingers, and that's one I kind of hang my hat on. Like those motion control things are really cool. It was like Chisholm Bob,
right? Maybe he's got little programming things in his hands, so when he wiggles a certain finger, it's doing certain actions.
Exactly.
Finger dancing.
Yes.
Yep. Finger dancing.
That's what he's doing.
Oh, it's so the magicians.
Yes.
That's what he's really doing. All right.
So I thought that this was interesting. This is a kind of a note that I don't think it's not really prevalent unless you read the credits, because a lot of our guys here are credited just as CAOC analysts, and the CAOC is it's the center, or it's the Combined Air and Space Operations Center. But technically, CAOCs are only for multinational headquarters when it's kind of, NATO, and kind of they're all this joint force group of different countries working together. So it's odd that all of the guys are credited as CAOC analysts, because it seems purely Air Force. And so it should just be AOC, which is just the Air and Space Operations Center. And if it was joint, if they did have Navy or Marines in here, then it would be the JAOC, the Joint Air and Space Operations Center. Really nerdy military talk, but I just needed to clear that up.
I am here for it.
If we're not doing this in a minute-by-minute podcast, who is going to know about it?
This has become a significant challenge to my viewing of the movie.
But they're not CAOC analysts. Come on, guys. Get it right. But yeah, we do have all sorts of great words getting thrown around. The AWAC, that's the Airborne Early Warning and Control System. that's that funky little plane that's got like a little, I don't know, big square radar dish on top that's flying really high. And so that's what they're using. And then the Global Hawk, which is also an unmanned surveillance aircraft. So those are the two things that are pulling up all of the little radar information that we start to see here throughout this bit.
I watched that, and there's part of me that really wants Tony to have like a little dish on his head. Like, I feel like if this is going to be an engagement of equivalence, he needs to have an AWAC dish on the back of his head.
But only if it's attached to one of those rainbow hats that kind of has the spinner helicopter thing that you wear as a toy. Yeah. So I think that's
noted. Yeah,
but it has to be like Inspector Gadget, where it like pops up. And then it'll fold back in when he doesn't need it.
All right. So it pops up, it shoots up kind of like a tulip, and then it opens, and the fabric of the rainbow just like flops on top of the head. I'm so, yes. 100%.
They need to make this Iron Man toy. I'm sure it would be popular with all the kids.
Even if it's just popular with us. But that's okay.
Hey, there's an audience, guys.
I'll buy 3. Right.
So we have actors in this scene. This is something that I always find interesting when we're looking at military scenes in films where the military is like very cooperative and working with them and everything. They will often have their real military people in the scene doing the stuff that they do because it looks so authentic. Obviously, you have actors in here who are throwing out the lines and everything, but you do have, like sometimes you'll just cut to random faces who just happen to be sitting there looking, doing things. And I always find it interesting because I'm like, well, that's probably a real military person. The one who really stood out to me is at about second 14, because he's got his name tag on. He's very easy to identify. I'm assuming it's his real name tag, but it could be wrong. I could be wrong. It is, of course, the mysterious David Owens. It looks like he's got a NATO, actually. So speaking of the CAOCs, a NATO Air Force pilot name tag patch on his uniform. And then it's really hard to identify, but his shoulder patch says it's space radar, and it has like a bat symbol on it. And I couldn't help but feeling like, is this like some weird, like, in joke that the production design team had, like throwing on like a bat symbol, because it is reminiscent of Batman. It's kind of an odd choice for a shoulder patch in a Marvel movie.
Wait, where is this? Where is this?
So in second 14, you see the guy, he's there, he's like looking, and then he kind of bends down to talk to the guy working at the computer. He's got David Owens, his name patch. Right? He's got a patch on the front of his shirt that has his name, and then the other one is like a shield, wings. And it's like US Sente or something. I think all of these are faux costume patches. Yeah. I was trying to find, like, I looked through far too many Air Force patches, and I couldn't find any of these. So I think that these are just things that, like, costume companies, like Western Costume, probably makes to put on, you know, fake military uniforms in movies. But the one on his shoulder, and it's really hard to see on this clip.
It's actually like the bat has an insignia on its chest, too. It's like
it does.
It's that
because it
weird
says space radar, and so the bulk of the patch is a bat, but then it's got like a radar thing in the center of it.
I love that so much.
Yeah. It's much easier to see, like, in high def. I had to go look at it on the TV so I could actually figure out what I was looking at.
That's very fun.
So there's the bat signal. The bat signal in the Iron Man movie.
It was David Owens all along.
Well, and so I have some history of being an extra in Portland, and so I know I'll get the call outs for, you know, we need a Hispanic male from ages 30 to 45 with experience juggling machetes.
As you do.
So, right. Very, very specific call outs. And so it is not beyond understanding and belief that they are like, hey, any military people available on this day to come and sit and do your thing, and we'll, you know, hire you to come, and you get minimum wage and food and a uniform, just come as yourself type of a thing is completely believable.
And it's fun.
Yes. That's like, definitely don't do it for the money as an extra, but man, is it a joy. It's so much fun. I love all of this back end stuff. Oh, I love it. Just give it all to me.
And being an extra is great because you don't have the other stresses that you have when you're on the crew of a production and you're running around crazily trying to get stuff done, or even like the principal cast. You know, the extras, you're just kind of there and you're just filler. And
Yep. You have very strict instructions on what to do and what not to do, and there's no stress. You just get to watch the chaos, but not have any obligation to be a part of the stress and chaos, which is kind of nice.
The as we're looking at Rhodes, as he's on the phone with Tony, we get to see he's got a really nice watch. I was like, man, that's a really fancy watch that old Rhodes has got. And it made me wonder if it's a gift from Tony, because in one of the earlier deleted scenes, we see that Obadiah gives Tony a ridiculously expensive watch that is, I can't remember what the cost of it was, but it was in the tens of thousands of dollars to get the watch. And so I'm like, oh, maybe that's a gift of Tony of all these watches that he gets as gifts. And he's like, here, just take this one. I don't use it. I've got
I wish I was more of a watch person. Like, I can't tell could you figure out what it is?
You know, that's not something that I looked at as closely on the HD, and I couldn't quite figure out. Yeah, you never get quite close enough to really pinpoint what it is. And I'm not a watch person either, so I can't just look at it and go, oh, that's a such and such.
Yeah.
But we do see that he has his MIT ring on his finger. So we know that that he and Tony both went to MIT, and perhaps that's, at least in the film world, where they met.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd believe that.
Oh, get a load of this.
Oh, he found something.
It's a Breitling 50th anniversary green used Breitling wristwatch worn by Rhodey. It's a Breitling 50th anniversary it's a faux Breitling band wristwatch. So this isn't a fancy one, and I found it on Live Auctioneers that it just sold for like $400. Yeah.
Well, is it faux because it was for the movie, or faux because he bought it himself?
He bought it when he was overseas on the black market.
Right.
And that's the technical description. It just says faux Breitling brand wristwatch made from metal with minute and second hand. Thankfully, they included the minute and second hand.
Thank goodness. I'm so glad.
And opening back for battery replacement. This is the best. Items functionality is untested. So I hope Rhodes was not trying to actually keep time during the production of this film. So
I'm pretty sure then that it's meant to be the real one. And it just happens to be a terrible, or not terrible, but just a copy for filming.
Yeah, right.
It's got all the fancy details. I can look at it up close, but this is one where the minute hand is not. It's covering what looks to be a logo. It's like M something 4. So there's challenges here seeing the detail, but that's the watch. $400.
Huh.
Well, it looks like a real one costs around $4,000. So
better.
Better. That's more in line with what I'm looking for.
Yeah, right.
Well, and even then, I don't know. Well, that would be why, if it was a gift from Tony, why it would be a gift, because it's only $4,000. Like, that's his cheap, I'm going to go jogging in the park watch.
Right. He's probably got 50 of them in a closet somewhere that he hands out, at his discretion.
It's his Christmas present.
Yeah, right.
That's right.
Good old Tony. So I have a question for you. So we have our wonderful Major Allen, who, as you said, Pete, he's obviously a very angry Major here. So he and Rhodey kind of talk and everything. And then Rhodey says to Tony, when Tony calls, he says, there's a weapons depot a few clicks from where you're being held captive. That just, they just talk about how it just got hit and all that sort of stuff. And I mean, obviously, this is Gulmira. We've been learning about that for the last few minutes. But it was interesting because obviously these guys now have it under surveillance. So what do you guys think? Do you think that is this an area they had been watching before? They just didn't know, like when Tony was being held captive, that he happened to be kind of held in this same area? Or do you think that by finding Tony, they were kind of turned on to this area and now they're kind of keeping an eye on it? Or does that even matter?
Well, I mean, what really matters in the long scheme of things? But I feel like they're just watching it now that they did find Tony, because if they had been watching it beforehand, they would have found Tony a lot sooner, I think.
I'd like to think so.
I'd like to think so, but I wonder if they, even if they were watching it, would they have known that it was Tony that was there?
He was in a cave. It would have been hard to know that he was,
right
there if he was that hidden.
But if they're having that much surveillance, they probably would have noticed like people coming in hooded and tied down or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
There is this, it just makes that line cheeky, right? There's a weapons depot a few clicks from where you were held captive while we were watching you being held captive. Like that,
right.
that suddenly doesn't play.
No. We just wanted you to be tortured a little bit longer.
We needed you to feel the full weight of your impact on this military investment that we're making here. So I don't think, actually, I guess I'm saying I don't think that they were watching this weapons depot until after.
Well, and then here's my other question is, I mean, it's clear, obviously, the press has shown pictures to Tony that Stark weapons are being used by these people. And these are new ones, not the ones that were in the old wooden crates from the Russian-Afghanistan war era. This is like much newer stuff. I don't know how it works, but I mean, if the military sees photos like this of Stark weapons in the hands of terrorists, I mean, did they go talk to the people at Stark Industries to try to like trace it and figure out how did they get into their hands?
Of the pictures or the weapons?
The weapons. Like, how did the weapons get into these guys' hands?
I don't know. And let me just ask this. I've thought about this before. When you have seen like real, legit footage, like in our modern media, not in the movie, do you ever remember seeing like boxes, like Pelican cases with like Boeing written on the side of it?
Yeah, not really brand name.
Right. Yeah. Do we have brand named weapons right now? I legitimately don't know, and that's why what makes this feel out of context.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously, it's created for the world we're very specifically looking at here. But that's a good question, because I guess I never really think about that when I see pictures of terrorists with weapons and stuff. I don't go, oh, those weapons manufacturers, they must be, dealing under the table.
Right.
A lot of weapons tend to be identifiable even without branding on it. However, for the normal viewer, they need that Stark Industries logo slapped on the side to recognize and acknowledge the fact that, oh, hey, this is important.
Right. Yeah.
And this is something that we know and need. And so I don't think in real world they have actual like brand names on things. They barely have like serial numbers and whatnot. And so
and they're very small.
Yeah. It's a cinematic viewing edition in.
I'm looking at pictures of the Boeing Harpoon Block 1C missile during the Rim of the Pacific exercise 2016, and it's a missile in action. It's not like a prop missile for a release, and it's being fired off of the deck of the ship. And it's weirdly, it says Stark Industries on it. No, it doesn't actually say. It doesn't actually say anything. There's very, very fine print on the side of it. But to your point, Kathy, like there is no other missile that looks like this. Once you have seen the Harpoon Block 1C missile, you know that it's a Boeing product, and it makes it. It says it's the over the horizon missile, so that's scary.
Comforting, very comforting.
Yeah, right.
It's one of those things where I guess in my head I tend to think that, and this is probably wrong, but I tend to think that the companies are just doing their job making stuff, and there are all these. I always go back to was it Lords of War or is that the Nicolas Cage movie?
Oh yeah.
Like I go back to people like him who basically get these things somehow, and then just there's this whole black market of these things.
We never intended for it to be used for this.
Right. Yeah.
I
don't think that they're usually trying to get their
that was a great movie, Lord of War. Was a good movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think I have anything else for this minute. What about you guys?
That's it. Let's see what Rhodes does next.
I did like the very quintessential Tony, oh yeah, I'm just driving with the top down part. That was very like, oh, we're cool. It's all good. We're chilling.
Right.
Yeah, it was very, very entertaining.
I will say just a last note. It's funny that lines like that, driving with the top down, Ramin Djawadi pulled lines like that to name tracks on the soundtrack. And there is the track that's right here called Driving with the Top Down. But what I find is that the filmmakers use pieces of these tracks, like they chop them up and use them all over the place. Like this track we've heard before when Tony is racing down the road toward the beginning of the movie. And it's when he actually is driving with the top down, driving to the airport. And so it's something that the filmmakers do all the time, but it's interesting when you finally get to that line where it actually, now it's all contextualized because this is where he says it.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, Kathy, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I was excited to be here.
Yeah, it's a thrill to
or
talk
I guess I
Iron
still
Man.
am, since I still am here. But yeah.
We've got more.
I was excited. Not anymore.
Yeah.
Well, do you want to tell everybody where they can find you out there on the interwebs?
Yeah, you can find me. My username is usually Mrs. Soup all over the place. But you can also find me at kathycampbell.com, which has links out to everything that I do.
All sorts of good stuff out there.
Yes.
Well, everybody, that's it for today's show. Thanks so much for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe to the show for free at marvelmovieminute.com. Join us over in our Discord chat room and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at The Next Reel. And if you like what we do and you want to support us and get some cool stuff, become a patron over at thenextreel.com/Patreon. Until next time, true believers,